the job of the younger generation to push against societal norms. It's just what the younger generation does. They push against the norms of their parents and grandparents, and there's an important part in that, in society, making sure that we're doing things to the best of our ability, that we're keeping up with the times and not doing things in an inefficient, obsolete manner. But there's also a balance to be struck, because at the same time, societal norms are essential for us having a cohesive society, for us getting along. We have to have some kind of common norm for us to understand each other. For example, if you telling me something and I don't quite hear you and I'm like, hey, what? And you tell me again, and I'm like, hey, what? And you tell me again, we both understand that on the third what, I gonna hit you the, yeah, alright. And you gonna hit me the, yeah, and we both know what's going on. It's such a wonderful convenience, to me at least, how transferable life's lessons are, that we could learn something in one aspect, in one area in our life, and the lesson learned there is transferable to other aspects in our life. For example, if you're someone who suffers easily with motion sickness, or you get dizzy easily, the solution that they generally say is that you try to focus on something outside of the vehicle you are traveling in, something large, something far in the distance, and something stable, cannot be moving. And doesn't that echo the general advice you'd give someone for solving their confusion in life also? Focus on something that isn't so directly in the fray, something that isn't so constantly moving in your day-to-day, something large, something important, something far away, something in the future, something that you have to work towards, and something, most of all, stable. Makes sense, doesn't it? We live and experience life as individuals. While it seems like we perceive threats from groups and collectives easier, that creates a unique problem, because I'll be here living life as an individual, man thinking I'm good and moral, while women out there can be perceiving threats and experiencing threats from men in general. And when they express that, I can become defensive and say that, I am a good man, I'm not a violent man, I'm not one who is actually harming you. But that doesn't actually provide a solution to their problem, does it? It just seems like it's belittling their problem. I understand that fully. Similarly with victim blaming, when I am at the point of feeling hurt, telling me how to not get hurt seems like an insult. The majority of violent crime is committed by men, but the majority of men are not violent criminals. So what exactly do we do with that conundrum? What we do is we treat people as individuals. You see, there's a shopkeeper somewhere who has been robbed 5 times in last year, and every single time he was robbed is someone who fits my ethnic description. And we have already told him as a society that he's forbidden from making generalizations based upon that, not so? Nihilism, the belief that life is meaningless, or rather the lack of belief in anything that opens us up to believe that life is meaningless, it's purposeless, there is no real point to anything. In other words, if a 16-year-old were to get a philosopher to explain to you exactly what they mean when they roll their eyes at every single thing in the world. Now, with that, it isn't to say that it's nothing or it's trivial. There are some people that follow nihilism straight to its logical endpoint, straight to the grave. So I guess that's probably the main takeaway from it. It doesn't work as motivation if you have a goal, if you have a mission. It's such a shocker that believing that life is purposeless and meaningless doesn't motivate you to fulfill that goal. Nihilism seems inversely proportional to struggling. The more you struggle in life, the less nihilistic you seem to become. A guy sitting at home with no worries and just boredom to occupy his time tends to become more nihilistic. Who would have thought that someone without a purpose in life feels purposeless? Shocker. Distillation, the process by which you separate mixtures. So you have alcohol and water in a mixture. Alcohol boils at somewhere around 78 degrees, water boils at 100. So you boil the mixture at somewhere around 80 degrees. The alcohol would boil off. You could capture that and get back some alcohol. When you condense it, the water remains. Now what happens when we distill populations? We raise the temperature for the requirement for police officers to, hey, who wants to tell their fellow citizens what they can and cannot do? And if they don't obey you, you have the option to use physical violence. That's the degrees it raised to. That sounds like the perfect temperature to extract all the bullies and the bullied people out of society. What if now we raise the temperature to, hey, who thinks they can run an entire country and tell everyone what's good and bad and what they should and shouldn't do? That sounds like a recipe to extract all the arrogant, egotistical narcissists. Politicians. Now what if you're selecting someone for your life and your selection temperature is too low? You'd be left with a lot of options, but no way to select from them. Or your temperature is too high, you'd boil off all the good ones and be left with dregs. gold is shiny and remains shiny for a long time, and it's pretty difficult to destroy. So for quite some time it was one of the most valuable things in it. Then oil became the black gold, and now they say data is the new oil. Just about every single major corporation is trying to get their hands on your data somewhere or the other. Why? Because if you have enough data on someone, if you have enough information, you know them well enough, you're able to predict and even influence their behavior and thinking patterns. And that's especially lucrative when you think about their buying patterns. They don't have to read your mind. They know exactly how many cat videos you watch. They know exactly how long you dawdle on those corny relationship goals posts. They know you're lonely. Social media doesn't take our data for free. It's an exchange. We exchange our privacy for access to some of the most powerful tools humanity has ever seen. We can accumulate all of our random thoughts under trees, or through our own ingenuity create industries that have never been seen before. Or we could sell our privacy for likes from random strangers. But I mean, if you're looking for that little serotonin bump with the lingering depression afterwards, I think cocaine would be more reliable. Once upon a time in Trinidad, we had the sugarcane industry. We made sugar, sold it to UK and to USA. They gave us a good price all the time for it. And it's only fair because they were the ones who were abusing us, so they gave us a good price. The major part of the workforce was made up of the East Indian descendants, and the second of our two major political parties was created from the labor union of that industry. The problem when you have a short price for something is you do have to be competitive. So of course it was inefficient, and it was owned by the government, so of course it was corrupt. If an industry is seen as being representative of a race, and you are a political party not seen as being representative of that race, touching that industry becomes very tricky. However, if you are the party that is seen as representing that race, touching that specific industry seems very tricky also. So no one that mattered had a real interest in seeing it go right, and we were all tied to a sinking ship. Politicians' success isn't measured by necessarily seeing the country go right. It's measured by gathering the most votes.